Hey neighbors, the Handyman here with Initiative Coffee Company. The Bill Allan here with The Bill Allan and Bill Allan World. The fractured court is upon us. It's time to rise and roll.
Rise and roll, yeah. Hey people, good morning. It's time to rise and roll. I am here. We are doing the thing. And the thing today, Brian, is going to be very exciting.
Oh?
We have a bunch of stuff to get through in this show.
We?
And I have not had breakfast.
I can't help you.
That's
with
just a
that
random
at
thing.
the moment. I don't
But,
know
you know,
how to solve that problem for you.
Someday we will be sponsored by
We'll
Dunkin'.
be sponsored by, hopefully not Dunkin', maybe someone who's not
Good morning.
focused on coffee.
Good morning, Danny.
Morning, Danny.
Time to rise and roll. So we have, Brian, some exciting stuff going on Kickstarter. Some of it is very exciting because if you tune into this Twitch stream, you still have time to get on. One of them has only like 14 hours left.
Ooh.
So, but if you're watching this on YouTube the next day, then you probably will have missed it. But there's still a couple more. So we have some Kickstarter stuff to talk about. We have some fantasy literature stuff to talk about.
Okay.
We have a special guest
Potentially.
today, potentially, if he can make it in time, because we are live, people. So if Carlos can make it all, hey, Dragon Killer, then we will have Carlos Luna from Neon Rival. So
Cool.
And then last but not least, it'll be Random Monster Brainstorm time.
Ooh.
Which
Random Monster Brainstorm.
I like to surprise Brian with random things that he doesn't know about. And in this episode, we are going to have a random monster that we choose at random from the Monster Manual. And then Brian and I have to each come up with 2 different scenarios in which a DM might use said random monster.
I'm for it. I like that idea.
Yes.
That sounds like a fun game.
So stay tuned because we're about to kick it off. All right, so Brian, first thing, congratulations on your appearance on Dragon Talk.
Oh, thank you.
With Greg Tito. You and Latia were on Dragon Talk. If you guys don't know, Dragon Talk is a show. It's a thing that happens.
It's a weekly podcast. They record it on Twitch and then turn it into a podcast. You should check them out. It's at, I don't know, Google. I don't know the URL off the top of my head, but Google Dragon Talk.
Yeah.
Why don't you live stream on YouTube? We are exploring options right now, Dwarven Forge.
We are. So I think that your appearance on Dragon Talk was pretty cool. Number one,
I think it was a cool opportunity.
It was a cool opportunity. You and Latia talked quite a bit about Initiative Coffee and the different kind of activities that you guys have going on, building communities, which we talk about all the time on the show here. And it was a great opportunity for maybe a wider audience outside of our immediate Chicago area to get some exposure to kind of what we're doing and conventions and participating in that kind of stuff, creating original content. And then just the model for Initiative Coffee that, as you and I were discussing off camera the other day, is really something that you were forging ahead with that isn't really necessarily out there. And it's kind of a organic growth, in the last year as you merge your 2 passions for gaming and for the coffee and beverage service element to come together. So, and just to address your question, the Dwarven Forge, we are working on being able to simulcast to Twitch and YouTube. It takes up a lot of bandwidth, and the last time we tried it, it looked crappy. So we are working on solutions, but hang in there, and we appreciate you following the show. All right, so Dave, the wizard behind the scenes, the man behind the curtain,
It's true.
is going to try to do something with my screencast here, and that is to show you to show you the entirety of my screen. Okay, so here we go. Kickstarter time, Brian.
Kickstarter time.
The first one is Hagglethorn Hollow, and hopefully you're seeing what I'm seeing right now, which is this screen.
Sounds spooky.
Dave, God voice, yes?
Yes.
Hand-sculpted, highly detailed gaming scenery designed to enrich your tabletop gaming experiences. And as you all know, can you still hear me, Dave?
Chills already.
As you all know, I'm a big nerd when it comes to terrain. So this has 621 backers, 10 days to go. They had a pledge goal of 39,000, and they've already achieved 240, so they're well into the clear. Let's watch this incredibly effective video, and then we'll talk about it. Can you hear it, Dave? Okay, can you hear me and Brian while you're listening to this video? Okay. So Brian, look at that. So this is what I would call a cinematic.
So you dare venture
Dave, you know what? Go ahead and bring me and Brian down, because we'll talk about this afterwards. Let's.
You are a brave one.
We're not alone here.
You'd best be on your guard.
Yes, milady. Sorcery is this?
Hellhounds!
Oh, my children.
They're heading straight for Hagglethorn Hollow!
Get behind the walls!
Get the children inside.
Let none pass! Stand your ground, men! Show the devils what for!
It's over, trickster. Warden Gordon is gonna stop your fiends at the wall.
It's not over, it's just beginning. Everybody's losing their mind. My plan's going great.
The best fellowship can be found in the tavern. I'll use my broadsword.
Hey, come on, you're gonna roll for the sorceress.
I died. Is that the voice you're gonna do for her? Oh, I died. It's good. Okay.
Wow! Yay! So Brian,
Yes.
that was an incredibly cinematic video.
Yeah, if they put that much work into the teaser trailer for their content, imagine how much work they put into their content.
Right. So something we haven't really talked about with our other explorations of Kickstarters is how important the Kickstarter video is to the success of the Kickstarter.
I don't know anything about Kickstarter. Tell me how important the Kickstarter video is to the success of Kickstarter.
I think it's incredibly important, and here's why. Like a commercial for a product that you would see on television, I think if the message gets out there, and by the way, this is relevant to curriculum because I'm literally in the commercial unit in my class right now. So, but I think if the message is effective, if the commercial, what goes into an effective commercial, if that reaches people, your product will be effectively sold.
Right.
Like the purpose of the commercial is to sell the product.
Sure.
And the Kickstarter opening video isn't quite a commercial, but in a way it is. It has elements of a commercial in addition to being an informative video about this product and why you should back it, right?
It'd be interesting to see like the clicks for like who gets to pages with good videos versus who kickstarts those pages.
Yes.
Because I'm sure that there are, I mean, just like, you know, our revenue tracker on our website, you know, you see, like, it'll tell you how many people came to your site. It'll tell you how many people filled a cart. And then it'll tell you how many people, like, abandoned that cart or how many people, like, actually gave you money for a product.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see like the difference in the videos. I expect that the videos have a good deal to do with the success of the Kickstarter, but I've been wrong before.
So here's an interesting thing. Dave, cut to the screen. So Hagglethorn Hollow is an immersive, fantastical setting which you can customize to create your ideal tabletop gaming scenario using its towering components with its unique mix and match construction system. You can build and rebuild your town for a new adventure every time that you play. Each individual piece has been hand-sculpted by TTG creative director Johnny Fraser Allan, who brings more than 15 years of experience as a professional sculptor in the film industry. That's the part I wanted to point out back to camera. Because, Brian, we know some people who sculpt things for the film industry.
Do.
And
I mean, we are some people who sculpted things for the film industry.
But, I mean, so that to me explains that, here's a guy who probably knows a lot of people in the film industry, whether he produced this video or not, or if he just got some, like, buddies from the industry to produce it with him or for him, it shows.
Right.
I mean, first of all, just the initial stuff, like the initial, diorama, sizzle reel kind of, pretty shots are gorgeous, right? Real up close, a lot of different angles and stuff. Like you feel like
plenty
you're in
of bokeh.
Yes, plenty of bokeh.
Bokeh.
And it's you feel like you're in that environment, right? And then they layer in with the editing, they layer in like those sound effects and quotes from heroes and stuff. So it gets your imagination going. And then they kind of break the fourth wall and they show the guy like running the game on the table, and it's funny. That part's funny too, right? Those guys.
It reminds me of old like 1990s action figure commercials.
Yeah.
Where like it starts off with like the action figures standing there like shouting at each other,
Yeah.
and then you see the kids like smash them against each other.
Yes.
'Cause that's how they fight apparently.
And it's beyond effective.
Right.
So I'm going to say this. This is, it looks like they mathematically have about 6 times the amount of money that they needed.
Right.
Which is crazy. That's almost $250,000.
It's a lot of money.
So, and they have, by the way, I want to point this out. Tabletop Troubadour Games, this is their first Kickstarter.
That's huge.
First Kickstarter. This is...
Hi, congratulations on making it to the part of the video where people talk at you. I'm Andy. I'm the mold maker, caster, sculptor, and president of Dark Platypus Studios.
Hi, I'm Erica, Andy's wife. I came up with the character concepts and did most of the painting.
And I'm Andrew, and I'm mostly just here to look pretty.
And help.
Well, yes, help too.
So recently we started playing Mutant Crawl Classics, and it is awesome. It's like old school Gamma World with its own twisted sense of fun. We liked it so much, in fact, we decided to run a few games at Gen Con. And that's when I got a little carried away. Just in a single piece for ease of assembly and painting. I feel what makes Mutant Mayhem Minis special is the small post-apocalyptic details we've put into them. You may notice things like a support structure metal sword, repurposed street signs, mud flap skirt, and hubcap armor. Every figure has multiple details that really tie them to the setting. We also have a great cross-section of character types to start our line with. We have multiple pure strain humans based on the different Mutant Crawl classes, several mutants with unique mutations, a smattering of manimals, and even a plantient. Of course, player characters also need someone to fight. We're starting the line with a collection of toxic monsters called Pludians. They're really great because you can see all sorts of different bits of garbage sticking out of their bodies. Then we have some lizard enemies, the Zeans, which are small manimal iguanas, and the Gians, which are larger baddies that come from Gila monster stock. We also have some lizardoid boss monsters, including the massive Bob Zia, a multi-piece model that towers over all the other figures. Our hope is that we can unlock some stretch goals and add even more monsters to the line for this initial release, including several classics from the MCC Bestiary. So that's it, we're off to the races. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, you have my sincere thanks, and I hope you consider pledging to help us make this miniatures line a reality.
Please be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and thank you for your support.
Okay, so you might notice that there's a new person in the middle. Carlos, welcome to the show.
for having me.
Carlos Luna from Neon Rival and Dungeon Rats. We're going to talk about all the things he has going on in a minute. So those are minis that these guys came up with based on their love of Mutant Crawl Classics. What I like about these is that they're post-apocalyptic.
Right.
They're,
Rather than
you know,
another fantasy mini.
everybody can find fantasy minis. And even, you know, there are some more like sci-fi modern thing, you know, but a lot of them are like either, you know, a guy with an M16 and body armor.
It's
like there's a lot of like
more
riot,
so than-
more cyberpunk kind of sci-fi stuff. Whereas those really look like post-apocalyptic
Like
Gamma
vaguely Toxic Avenger-esque.
Yeah, you could even use it. You know, I could see it for like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, you know, futuristic post-apocalyptic setting, but really flexible. A line of high-quality pewter figures, which is, you know,
which
kind
is
of
your bread and butter, pewter figures.
I mean, I'm old school, so let me put this in though. If you're still watching this on Twitch, good for you. Oh yeah, Skeletorials, yeah, feed me, Seymour. So, and that's the other thing too. They had animal type, animal humanoids, plant humanoids, that kind of stuff. So, if you're watching this live on Twitch, you could still get into this because they have 14 hours left to go on this Kickstarter. But if you're watching this tomorrow on YouTube or anytime after October 15th, then rip. But maybe you could still get these, you know.
Yeah.
The benefit, like with any Kickstarter, is if you get in early, you typically
Generally
do pretty
cheaper,
well.
yeah.
So, all right. Before we jump onto Carlos's world and interrogate him, I had a table topic that wasn't related to gaming, but sort of. Patrick Rothfuss and the Kingkiller Chronicle. Do you read that stuff?
I don't. Everyone tells me I need to,
So,
though.
I am like you. I'm on the, everybody tells me that I need to read things and then I don't read them for like 6 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I get
And
into
then
it.
you binge the thing you
and
were
I'm-
supposed to read 6
yeah.
years ago.
And
Yeah.
then you start telling people like it's new.
Yes.
Like, everybody's like, yeah, I've been reading Rothfuss for years, but
Yeah, I jumped onto the bank. So my friend John Cermak told me about this probably like 6 years. He's one of the, you know John.
Yeah.
Like 6 years ago when Name of the Wind came out, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to get up on that. And I read the first chapter, and I was like, I can't get into this. Boop, bye.
Right.
Tried it again, couldn't get into it. Third time's a charm. I got it. Now I'm a slow reader, so it took me forever.
Right.
Yeah.
But damn, dude. And I always tell people this. It took me 52 pages before I got into it.
Right.
I was going to jump ship for the
Is-
first
is
52
pages about the time when it becomes a first-person narrative instead of a third-person narrative?
Sort of, yeah. It's kind of like, it kind of gets into the meat of the story, finally.
It's kind of an interesting... So the interesting thing about Patrick Rothfuss's books, and I was talking to Elise about this yesterday, is like at one point it becomes a story within a story within a story. So it's really an exercise in storytelling more than it's a novel.
Yeah.
Which I think is to its credit, right? I don't think there's enough media in general out there that explores like the depths of storytelling in really interesting and non-conventional ways.
And to me, as I started to read through, now once I got into it, then I'm I'm in, but I'm a slow reader. But as I'm going through the first one, I was like, you know what this is? It's the greatest character background ever written for a D&D game. Like it's this massive epic thing.
Right.
And then book 2 is really just a continuation of him reflecting on his life, you know, but it's really good stuff. And I'm probably a third of the way through book 2, which, you know, I'm a few years late.
Sure.
But other people
right,
who've
I'm
been
2/3 of the way
devouring
through
this
book
stuff
1,
are like, when are you going to finish the third? Maybe not with the same wrath and vigor that people are, you know, saying about George R.R. Martin.
I don't know,
finishing.
if you talk to Rothfuss, he might say it's with the same wrath. That
Yeah,
people are
just
trying.
finish it, you know. But then, so I pulled up this article. Dave, go to the full screen. So I pulled up this Newsweek article because it's not super recent, but relatively speaking this year, where he basically described that book 3, the one that he still hasn't finished and needs to put out, is just a prologue. So that this first trilogy is not the end-all be-all of his world. That he's going to write a whole bunch more set in his original world. And this this trilogy
Sure.
of many pages, 1,000,000 words or whatever, is going to set it off. So I find that fascinating.
It's interesting because it was my interpretation that the first book was a prologue.
Yeah.
And so the fact that there's a prologue to what I thought was the prologue piques my interest.
Right. Right. So, and there's a video embedded in this Newsweek article. I'll actually paste this into the chat. But there's a video where he's pronouncing a lot of the names and locations in his world, which I kind of appreciate as one of those people who fancies, the original naming conventions and not using traditional fantasy stereotypes for races and monsters and stuff. Like, to me, it's cool to come up with those things, but it's also fascinating to watch how much people like butcher the pronunciation of what I intended.
And from my understanding, Rothfuss has taken a very like Tolkien-esque approach here, insofar as like he built an entire currency system and 7 languages specifically for his book series that only he has a firm understanding of.
Right. And hopefully he won't die before he finishes it.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, so that was my one thing.
Sure.
My literary share. So nerds, go read the Kingkiller Chronicle because you won't be disappointed. And if you are reading Name of the Wind and you're like struggling, just skip to page 52. And you'll be fine. It's worth it. I'm a slow reader, but I promise you it's worth it. I have found it to be an invigorating reading experience in the fantasy genre.
2/3 of the way through the first book at this point.
Yeah.
And it's quite good.
It's pretty good. So, all right, Carlos.
You didn't come all the way out here to hear us talk about
I like it.
Carlos, tell us
I should,
tell us about how you got Neon Rival. Like, how did that come together? Who's part of it? Tell us about that.
Well, Neon Rival is actually just a collective of artists that we work with, and that I think a lot of people have misconceptions on what it is. It's not a network. It's not anything on paper. It's just we wanted to put a name to the people we like, the creators that we like, and that we work closely with. It's not anything that people can apply to or that they can submit stuff to. Like, I want to be a part of this collective. It's not like that. It's like, hey, I work very closely with Patrick, and Patrick works closely with me. I work in his projects. He works in mine. It's like, let's give it a name so we know what's going on.
That's awesome. So you guys started with Dungeon Rats, yes?
Yeah, so there's Dungeon Rats. That's an interactive actual play that we do. So we take suggestions from the audience, from our listeners, and we weave them into the campaign. We're just about to start our 3rd season, which is going to be a brand new campaign. So if you want to jump in without listening to those back episodes, that's great.
And I just want to clarify briefly, by suggestions, you don't mean like what monster in the monster manual would you suggest?
Oh.
Because I listened to an episode last week that was a giant cheese monster.
Yeah. So it's whatever they can come up with. Like, people are usually, like, sometimes we do get suggestions in the monster manual, but we get some awesome ones. Like, one time it was like a 2-part episode where we just fought Dwayne the Rock Golem Johnson.
That's fantastic.
Someone made stats for him and anything. We put it on Reddit. It like really picked up on Reddit when we put it on there. Someone made, because our characters are only like level 5, I want to say, so they're not very strong. Someone made a beholder, but nerfed him, so they made him an emo beholder. So he was a little emo. Not all his eyes worked because he had swoopy hair in it. And he would just he would float around singing emo songs. That was really fun.
That's cool. Awesome.
Yeah, people are really like...
How did you guys decide? I mean, were you all gamers together, and then you're like, let's do a podcast, let's do a show? Or were there a couple people who kind of founded this idea and then you cast it and recruited people that you would like to work with? How did that come together?
Yeah, so Patrick and I was doing graphic design, and Patrick had a studio, and he was nice enough to, I asked him, like, hey, can I rent out some space in your studio to do some of my work? And he was just like, dude, just take some of the space, just contribute to the space. So, we'd spend late nights together. I'd be finishing up my project, he'd be finishing up his. we'd have a beer and we just talk about stuff that we want to do. And he had mentioned, he's like, "Oh, you ever played Dungeons and Dragons before?" I was like, "No, this is like 3 years ago." And I was like, "No, I've always wanted to. I played Magic. I played other role-playing games. Dungeons and Dragons just seemed really daunting, because there was so much."
That's a common conception of Dungeons.
Yeah.
I don't think that's all.
Well, because it's been around forever, and you associate it with to play this game, I must have 40 books.
Yeah.
And you're like, Jesus, I get
And there's a lot of intimacy required to sit down at the table and
RP
with people.
For sure. And we were both improvisers, so we had taken classes together, and he was just like...
Through Second City, right?
Second City, IO, a training center that I had started too. And it's actually a funny story because I had met Patrick 7 years prior to all that. I was in a band and he was doing podcasting. He interviewed me. Anyway, skip forward, and he's just like, we play a game. We had a lot of fun. We played a second game, had a lot of fun. And we're just talking one night, and he's like, "Hey, you want to do a podcast? You know all the tech stuff. I know all the tech stuff. It'd be half the work if we both took half." And we knew other people in the improv community. So we were like, "Hey, you guys want to play?" And they were like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we started off on Twitch.
And is it video and audio or?
It used to be video, and then it went to audio for a very long time. But now we're going back to doing video, and we'll be doing audio as well.
Cool.
So it's
and
fully
that
produced.
has to do with your partnership with Wizards, I would assume.
No, actually, it doesn't. Dungeon Rats has nothing to do with Wizards. Rivals is
Rivals of Waterdeep.
Yeah, Rivals of Waterdeep. That's Wizards. But yeah, Dungeon Rats. We're just if you listen to an episode, they're produced. So I cut them, I edit them. They sound like a real adventure, real characters walking through a world.
Music beds, sound effects?
Music, Foley, sound effects, Foley. I do all the music myself, so I'll write with what we're doing.
Okay, just tech geeking out for a moment. What do you use?
For what, recording?
For recording and for all your production and posts.
Yeah, Reaper. So I'm a Reaper man. What do you use, Pro Tools or?
Well, we have the Adobe suite, so.
Audition.
We're pretty much, yeah.
Audition's not a DAW, so I couldn't record music on it. So MIDI controllers and stuff like that, which I would love. I mentioned that because I wanted to use Audition because the interface is very easy. But yeah, I use Reaper. Interface, Focusrite, 18, i20, microphones because we don't have a nice space. We use dynamic SM58s.
Talk about the setup. You mentioned the audience and the interactivity component, and it's beyond just interacting via a chat and a moderator. You're really interacting in terms of taking their content and their ideas and incorporating it. And I am assuming that a lot of that is successful because you guys have an improv background.
Yeah.
So talk about the setup. Is this 5 minutes before we read it, or do you prep? Talk about that process.
When we're on Twitch, it's half prep, half what they're saying in the chat.
Okay.
When we are just podcasting, it's pretty in depth and weaved into the storyline and the world, and how he does that.
And who's the DM?
Patrick. Yeah,
Okay.
Patrick O'Rourke.
Okay. So that sounds cool. That sounds really cool. Talk about then. So you did Dungeon Rats, and that was going on. How did the other shows develop?
Yeah. So.
And who's in them? How do you guys decide that kind of element in terms of participation, casting, and just basically time? How do you make all this happen?
Yeah, it's pretty much just everyone is their own person, and if they have projects going on, everyone is willing to work on those things. We kind of have, right now we have Dungeon Rats is pretty much the thing that goes on, but Neon Rival itself has its own stream called Neon Rival Presents, which is kind of just a dump site where we try out things. So we'll try out a Star Trek thing. We did Wizards hit us up to do Tomb of Annihilation.
Cool. Okay.
So we did 5 episodes for them. When we were trying out Rivals, we put Rivals up there for a little bit. Neon Rival Presents, we're just trying out different things, different people. It's nothing too heavy. I mean, Dungeon Rats is the bread and butter of the show, pretty much, and just everything else is kind of like a just like little ways that we can support other projects that might be short-lived, but we're trying new things.
Starfleet Engage.
Yeah, so
tell me about that.
When Star Trek Adventures came out, I wasn't actually on that show, but Patrick was. Patrick did it. When that show came out, he wanted to do a podcast, and he loves Star Trek. He actually has his own podcast where it's him and his friend Patrick Winnegar. They watch all of Star Trek Next Generation. So it's Patrick Winnegar and Patrick O'Rourke. It's called Pat Trek. And it's a great show.
So they suffer through the first 2 seasons in order to get to the good stuff.
You know what? You wouldn't know that based on Patrick. So Patrick Winnegar has never seen Star Trek Next Generation. He thinks it's really hokey. He remembers growing up with it, thinking like, okay, this is really hokey. Patrick O'Rourke is hardcore Star Trek Next Generation. And he,
the final frontier.
They rate the
These
episode
are the voyages
at
of
the end,
Starfleet, the heroes whose continuing mission is to maintain peace throughout the Federation.
So Set to Kill would be the bad. Like this episode is Set to Kill. Right. Yeah, they're just all fun guys.
That's cool. So how then did you get to Rivals of Waterdeep?
Yeah, so I had done. So Dungeon Rats was doing great, and they had Tomb of Annihilation. They hit us up to do Tomb of Annihilation, just like a short run type thing. And then, I don't know, I was just talking with Greg Tito just online on Twitter, and he decided to put together a group to play a year later, to play the new Waterdeep book that was about to come out. So they hit up Dungeon Rats, and they hit up Spawn on Me podcast, which is a gaming podcast and Twitch stream in Chicago. And then we all met. We all really clicked, and it's been going on. I think we just did episode 14 right now. So it's a weekly, every Sunday at noon. We play.
How long is that supposed to go on for?
I don't know. We just signed up for the second season. Yeah, I was very happy that we got a second season, and I think it's going good. So we'll probably get a third.
How did the casting for this part come about? Because there are some new faces. So in other words, it's not like your show is always the same talent pool. Yeah. Like you have Dungeon Rats is now doing another show. So these are different people. How did you bring this cast together?
I didn't. Greg actually brought us all together.
Oh, okay. Are they Chicago people?
Yes.
Like, what's the background?
They're all Chicago people. They're streamers. They're podcasters. They're people in this realm, and they're gamers, both video game and tabletop. I think his idea was a lot of these streams are filmed on the West Coast. Let's get this Midwest vibe, different places, but all kind of in the same realm, in the same hemisphere or whatever. And this Waterdeep book that they're putting out is levels 1 through 5. So this is a bunch of gamers. Like, I think this is Cicero's first time playing Dungeons & Dragons. But he's played other tabletop. Brandon's first time playing. Tanya's been playing since like forever. And Serena's played for the last like 5 years. Sharif has been playing also different role-playing games. So everyone has different levels of RP and different levels of it. And I think they were trying to introduce the Waterdeep book for newer people, and I think they wanted us to be the example. Now it's actually like gone a little bit further. They're already level 5, so we have to.
Are you gonna dive into Dungeon of the Mad Mage then?
No, I'm gonna keep going with this. Cool. They put so much in there. The only thing is I have to kind of like increase some of the challenges. The challenges, yeah, for sure. But
I'll say that what you say about Greg Tito definitely tracks, because in my conversations with him, he seems to be very focused on getting representation off the West Coast. You know what I mean? Like, not that the West Coast representation isn't great, but that he is very focused on like expanding the net as to like where people can find games.
Yeah, I think so. I think Greg really, you know, and we met him in LA, and he came out to Chicago actually not that long ago. Cool. He's a great guy. He really does care about like all of this, like all of us, and all the things that we're doing.
He seems very genuine in terms of
extremely genuine. Yeah.
The projects he's supportive of. So that's awesome.
How do you and Patrick split up the load? I mean, so obviously you're doing a lot of the audio production.
Yeah.
And is he also? And who was doing all the art? Because I see you guys have some really cool.
A lot of the art. I mean, a lot of the artwork is fan artwork.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll do logo design and I'll do the photos and stuff. My buddy Joe does it and I'll Photoshop it and all that. But I mean, the fans are just so awesome. Cool. They make the best things, and we will always repost it. They do artwork for us. We'll always send it out for other people. Like, we've had stuff printed. I've had people send me stuff. Splitting up the load can be hard. I got really into editing, and I kind of just like snatched that from him, and then I got bogged down with it, so I was kind of like, hey, don't you want to do it?
Remember that time I took all the work with you and you protested?
Yeah.
I would like to acquiesce to your protest.
Oh, you've had a baby since then? Okay, I understand. It's like that.
So is this full-time for you guys?
I mean, like, our full-time job?
Yeah.
No.
No, okay.
No. But, I mean, it's a part-time job for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, each episode was taking me over 20 hours, like 20 hours an episode.
Yeah,
that sounds right.
It's pretty intensive when you put that much production into it, and you know, and then you're adding other elements to really flesh it out and make it more immersive.
Yeah, I had never heard an actual play podcast before I started my actual play podcast. So I was under the impression that people were doing stuff, we're adding production to it.
That everybody was doing
that everyone was doing this.
Rather than just like setting up a mic and
with
them. Yeah.
I was like, who would want to listen to that? But I guess a lot of people listen to it. I like even multi-tracking. I was astonished that like people weren't multi-tracking, that it was just like one microphone. And I'm like, wow, this is weird. But yeah, and then I'm working on videos now. I'm going to start working on videos.
One other thing that you've been working on, and this is, I guess, tangentially related to Neon Rivals, you've been working with some inner city schools on getting them equipped to do podcasting.
Yeah, yes.
Or you've dropped off some equipment.
Thank you. I used what little influence I have on Twitter for a very short amount, a week.
All right. I mean? I don't want to oversell it.
Yeah, please don't oversell that. The man who has been doing all the work is the teacher that we raised money for. So I logged into Facebook. I haven't been in Facebook in a long time, and a friend of mine had posted a GoFundMe for this teacher. And I know the neighborhood, and it's the kids. The kids don't have this. They don't have much, and it was very interesting because this GoFundMe was for Dungeons and Dragons books, a DM screen, just like basic stuff. And then if you scrolled more, he wanted to start a podcast. So he wanted like one microphone where the kids can do their own podcast or whatever.
Cool. This is for 6th grade?
6th grade.
Okay.
And I was
aggressive.
Like, dude, I'm telling you.
That's great, man.
That's awesome.
I met the guy.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. He runs the campaign's 70 kids. The campaign is 70 kids. It goes on every day. So like during creative writing time or whatever, or it was silent time, 5 kids are going to like the corner
it's West
of the room.
Marches. That's awesome. They're doing a West Marches campaign for the 6th grade.
Even better. So he started this last year, and his characters their characters level up as the kids level up in class. So behavior, grades.
That's awesome.
He showed me this online program that he uses, and like I think he just kind of made it to track himself.
Yeah.
And he puts in stuff, and it's like good behavior, and his kids are so.
It's a full curriculum built around Dungeons and Dragons.
he started it last year. The kids that are in 7th grade now become NPCs in the world for the new kids.
Oh, that's awesome.
So he knows. So now, like the second year he's doing it, he knows the world even better than he did last year, because he knows, like, oh, like Marlon was in this area right here. They're gonna run into him now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the guy pulled out 2 80-page binders, because not only is he playing, but there's also a scribe at the table taking notes on each person's campaign, and it's all being weaved into one. And then another binder just filled with like art that the kids are doing.
That's cool.
But yeah, they got the microphone, so now they're recording, but they're not necessarily recording their campaign yet. I don't think he has figured out exactly how to do that. They're doing field guides as their characters.
That's awesome.
What their characters know about nature and like the animals around or the monsters around them.
Cool.
And describing it that
way. There's so much research that shows all of the like psychological benefits of playing D&D, whether it's limiting xenophobia or like increasing empathy or whatever. That it's exciting to hear somebody building curriculum for kids that it can have a real impact on around such a robust system that can teach them amazing things.
He was telling me, sorry not to cut you off. He was telling me he had started like some type of journaling diary thing in the class, and some of the kids were having like a real hard time writing. They were like, Mr. Greenlee, like, I didn't do anything. Like, what am I gonna write about? I didn't do anything. Like, and they did do stuff. They just don't think of the importance of their lives, that they're writing it down or thinking deeply into it. So he changed the journaling to like journal as your character. And he said like, oh, they started writing so much about what their character were doing, what they're adventuring and all that. I was like, oh, that's so amazing.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's I was just gonna say it, that age is right about you. Certainly, kids can play at younger ages. I did. I started very young, and I taught my kids how to play when they were younger than that. But by 6th grade, I think they're cognitively developed enough to really take on challenges where they're immersing their mind into this situation and scenario and being this other character. But yeah, like Brian said, I mean, just being able to weave curriculum in and out of that, you could tie so many things.
Think about how motivated the kids can be, where every aspect of their learning is part of a game.
Yeah. Science, literature,
awesome.
math. It's cognitively so many benefits as well. I mean, I will never forget that my mom said the biggest jump that she saw in me was like between 1st and 2nd grade. My scores rocketed, and that was really the time that I started going even deeper into gaming, and my literacy, like my reading scores, my writing scores, math, all that stuff, because you're doing fast math calculation when you're playing, especially crunchy old 1st edition.
Oh yeah, crunchy.
So I mean, all that stuff is hugely beneficial. Well, good on you for whatever you raised, man. I mean, if you're helping out that project, we'd like to. Help out. So give us the details, and we'll kind of see what we can do, because we obviously are very gifted, blessed, fortunate, and lucky, all in the same spell to have the stuff that we have at this school and partnerships like our friends at Black Magic Design. That's grown out of a lot of our endeavors too. So it's time to play the final game.
It's time to play the final game.
And this game is called Random Monster Encounters. All right, so Carlos, since you're the guest, I'm going to let you
pick a random.
You have to close your eyes. So the rule is open this book, flip through it.
He's making these rules up as he goes.
Okay, you guys don't do this every week?
No. We weren't sure you were going to make it on time.
I make shit up.
We decided to have a backup plan.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna flip through. You're gonna pick the monster.
Okay.
So I'll start the flipping. Close your eyes.
Okay.
And you just say stop when you
stop.
want me. Wow, that was fast. Okay, now guide your hand over and choose. Drop your hand somewhere, and wherever you drop is the closest thing.
Okay, someone pick left or right.
Okay, left or right.
Okay.
It's Stone Giant.
Okay.
Ooh, that's That is not the kind of challenge that I was ready for. All right. So we're going to take 30 seconds.
Okay.
To enter the sphere of Gygax. Unlock your mind.
I don't want to work. Yeah.
Think of the encounter that the stone giant would. I don't even know what CR rating a stone giant is.
Don't worry about the CR.
They're tough.
Just take my approach.
So I'm thinking about how would I use the stone giant?
Right. So you're a DM.
You're building an encounter.
You build an
with
encounter.
Stone giant
Give us a
as,
little
like,
bit of context, and then the stone giant's kind of the feature for the encounter. Okay. Brian, you ready?
I'm ready.
Go ahead.
All right. Stone giants are attacking a city in the mountains that happens to have been a stone giant stronghold that they were driven out of millennia ago, and they're trying to retake their city. So they're throwing rocks at walls. All of the buildings are sized for giants but have been retrofitted for people. So they're going through and like smashing through floors to like rebuild these buildings in their own size.
Nice. Well played. Are you ready?
Okay, so I picked the one that I probably shouldn't have picked because I love whenever I think of stone giants, I always think of like these gentle, the BFG.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go with it.
Yeah. I always think of the BFG.
Variety.
So the first thing I thought of was Reverse Gulliver's Travels, where they're big and armed and they're
That's
small.
awesome.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
And they're very curious about us, and just like the adventurers would have to interact in the society and be treated a certain way in the society. But I didn't think of them as monsters the entire time. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
That's cool.
It's still
a great
an encounter.
twist.
Yeah.
That's why we do this.
And just like how good, all the obstacles that they would face would be tiny obstacles that obviously stone giants can't work their hands around, or stuff like that, or things like that.
I dig it.
Okay, so I went with I got stuck on the elemental part of it, like stone.
Yeah.
So I thought they're up in a very remote mountain. Like just to get to this location would be an adventure, and I would make sure that there's no way that through spells or magic they could just fly to the top of the mountain. They'd have to climb and fight off other things and bird creatures and stuff. But then they finally get to the top of the mountain, and they find this ancient temple that's guarded by the stone giants, because inside of the temple are one of the last deposits of the earth elemental crystals, the magical crystals of the element of earth, and the stone giants are the guardians of these. And they're not evil, they're not good, they're neutral, because they're of the element of earth, and they're the guardians of this very precious magical earth component. And so the party has to either nobly persuade the stone giants to let them have these crystals for their mission, that their quest, or they have to deceive,
their vast quest of neutrality.
Yes, or they have to just go all in and fight against the stone giants, which would be a deadly challenge. So that was my thing.
Cool.
All right, so that's it. Hope that was helpful for you newbie DMs. Sorry I didn't check in more frequently on the chat, but
I was keeping an eye out. We didn't.
Skeletorials, thank you if you're still watching. And he said to Carlos, definitely really cool stuff. So yeah, thanks for coming on, buddy. It was good to meet you in person, and we're gonna give you a tour once we stop rolling cameras. Yeah. But thank you, folks, as always, for tuning in. If you're tuning in live on Twitch, we appreciate it. It's always fun. And if you're watching this later on Initiative Coffee Company's YouTube channel, go ahead and leave comments in the comments below and give us a like, subscribe.
Click the thing with the bell.
Yeah, click the notifications bell so you don't miss out on any of this stuff. Find us on all the other social media, and make sure that you tune in next week for Rise and Roll.
Roll together.
Hey neighbors, thanks for watching our video. Make sure you check out our other videos here and here. Make sure you subscribe down there and get the notifications from the bell up there. See you next time.